We have in the studio joining us Nelson Ekujimi, Executive Director, Center for Social and Economic Rights. Nelson, good morning.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
And we also have Ayodele Adio, who I mentioned earlier, Managing Editor, Avalon Daily, Public Affairs Analyst, joining us as well. Good morning.
Morning.
Now, let me begin with you, Ayodele. You've heard the TUC, the first Deputy President of the TUC, what he has said, talking about the fact that this fight is practically about workers in the federal government who are not necessarily captured in some of the measures being put in place by the government.
Well, I think that the labor unions should even frame their conversations better and not narrow it to fighting for the interest of just workers captured in the federal government. You should be fighting for the interest of the working class Nigerians generally, because the policies affect not just people who are employed by the federal government. It affects every working class Nigerian, across the country. The reality is that inflation is becoming unbearable.
Absolutely.
The reality is that purchasing power is dwindling. So these are the realities that the average Nigerian confronts every day he walks out of his house. The question on the table is, it's been 3-4 months since the subsidies were removed. It's been 3-4 months since promises were made to easing the cost of transportation and to tackle the cost of food prices across the country. Unfortunately, we haven't seen the kind of implementation that inspires confidence to say that XYZ is being done to address the cost of food, and XYZ is being done to address the cost of transportation nationally. Now, because the reality is that food and transportation takes over 60% of the average income of the Nigerian. And if you address these two issues, you're likely to cushion the effect that inflation has on the pockets of Nigerians. So for me, rather than wait for CNG buses, which you have to go through series of conversions into those engines, and listen, the plan even says they're going to be converting about 10,000 or 100,000, which is nearly sufficient enough. We have to look for other ways of subsidizing public transportation, not necessarily waiting for the CNG buses. I mean, those are fantastic because the cost of fueling them are a lot lower than buying petrol.
Absolutely.
But you cannot rely on those conversions to subsidize public transportation. You also cannot rely on that to find a way to subsidize the transportation of food and the kind of investment that you want to do in our food system to bring prices down. I think these are the issues that Nigerians are worried about. And I think people are genuinely afraid that if these issues are not addressed, it's going to swallow them up. So you have to have some sympathy for the TUC and for the NLC, who, from where they sit, they see elected people into government appointing hundreds and hundreds of aides who are going to be paid from the national purse. You see videos of aides who are driving in convoys of SUVs on the cost of the Nigerian people. And so if you're living comfortably and you expect the Nigerian people to make sacrifices, it becomes a bit dishonest. So you want to see a lot of prudence, savings, frugality on the side of government for you to inspire confidence in the Nigerian people that we are all going through this together. At the moment, there seems to be a huge dichotomy. It looks like the Nigerian people are going through pain and those who are elected into government are living their best lives. And that should not be the case.
Right, indeed. Now, still sticking with you because you said that instead of waiting for the CNG buses, government should look at other measures. And I'm wondering if you are to suggest to government what measures they can take to addressing the matter of transportation, what should they be looking at? Yes, we have seen some states saying that they were going to put in some buses in place for their people to, get by at the end of the day. And then we see some states like Lagos also looking at cutting down the cost of transportation. What are you looking at if you're saying that government should putting other measures as it's waiting for the CNG buses?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Lagos has done, what you have rightfully said, especially with its BRT buses. It's tried to have conversations with the NURT. That's proven a bit difficult. Yeah. Now, the idea of the CNG buses is because government argues that it's cheaper to fuel them, right? Before it gets to the point where you have those buses, you have to find a way, either by a voucher system through the NURTW or through a voucher system through state-owned buses, to be able to subsidize the cost of buying petrol for these vehicles, right? That is going to subsidize public transportation in the interim before you introduce the CNG buses. Because, listen, whether we like it or not, right, there has to be some sort, because we're talking of palliatives, you're going to spend money, isn't it? Right? So rather than distributing rice that really hardly gets to as much people as you want to impact, my argument is that you should subsidize specific issues that impacts the pockets of Nigerians directly. So if you convert many of these monies that are wasted into a voucher system that allows registered public transportation owners to get petrol at a subsidized rate to fund public transportation, then you'll be cushioning the effect on the average Nigerian. But if we continue to do... Listen, there was a report on the Daily Trust yesterday that the price of diesel is about 1,000 naira to 1 naira, which means manufacturing has shrunk. More people are going to be losing their jobs. So we have to target the most important price shocks in the economy and find a way to mitigate those costs by targeting subsidies or palliatives, since that's the better word to use now, in those particular issues to drop costs down while you're waiting for the broader initiatives that you're putting in place to kick in perhaps 6 months to a year from now. But in the interim, people have to be alive to see a better economy.
And